Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. Last night, yesterday, all day, but particularly last night was an incredibly tumultuous evening. And we still don't know the results of how the conflict with Iran is going to end. What we do know is that yesterday, Iran, in the midst of the funeral ceremony for Qasem Soleimani, fired missiles onto an American base in Iraq. And immediately rumors started that over 30 soldiers were killed, American soldiers were killed. Now, I'm going to do something in this episode. I'm going to repeat the headlines as they were stated, because it's important for me to show you the narrative that was almost interwoven into the situation last night. But I'm mentioning this because the headlines, as stated throughout the evening, were terribly dismissive of the human life that exists outside of Western lives. In other words, the headlines only focused on Americans or people from the West in terms of death. And if it was someone from Iran, someone from Iraq, nobody cares, according to the headlines. But I have to give you the headlines as written. So I just want you to know that I'm going to talk about that as well. Right? We're going to hit that too. So immediately reports came out that 30 troops, American soldiers, were killed. And the bloodlust, the war hawks, everyone started to fume about going to war with Iran and devastating them and just unleashing the dogs of war from America to avenge the 30 troops that were killed. We don't know how many were killed, but almost immediately after it's amazing. There's another narrative underneath here that I have to segue. It's amazing the competing narratives that took place last night. And the competing narratives all had a specific agenda. There was a movement on social media that wanted to push for war, that really got that 30 soldier story trending. But then there was also a counter movement to stop war with Iran that very effectively crushed that 30 soldiers being killed narrative. But then there was also a third narrative that was being thrown into the mist, and that was mainstream media. Mainstream media, from MSNBC to CNN to NBC, put on war hawk after war hawk explaining why the president must respond. And you know, this is one evening where the democratization of media almost won. I mean, so far, so good. All right. Now, I've given you all the caveats. Let me just tell you what the hell happened last night, right? So, Iran, in the midst of the funeral proceedings for Qasem Soleimani, launched a missile attack onto an American air base. Immediate reports came out saying that 30 people had been killed. 30 American soldiers had been killed. But in actuality, it looks like only Iraqi soldiers were killed. And I say it precisely like that because that's what came out immediately afterwards. And then all of a sudden, simply because it was American lives that were spared, but potentially spared because we don't know the full damage, and because it was only Iraqis who were killed, then all of a sudden the bloodlust in America subsided. Isn't that something? Lives only matter if they're from America. But that's not new, because if lives actually mattered beyond American lives, then we would not have had the Iraq War. So that's the first thing that happened last night. Second thing that happened, I mean, what a night. Terrifying, terrible night. There was an earthquake in Iran. Iran threatened to attack the UAE, Israel, and several other, Qatar, I believe, several other states in the region, nations in the region that were closely allied with the United States. They threatened to attack those states if Donald Trump retaliated for their retaliation. And for a brief moment there last night, we saw the opportunity for this to end. There was an opportunity for this to be over because there has been so much international condemnation and domestic condemnation for the assassination of Iran's top general that almost, I think it became evident that Iran, one, had to respond because this was a declaration of war by Donald Trump. So Iran had to respond, but now then the ball is back in America's court. Do we respond? Do we retaliate? Do we retaliate over something that President Trump started, unnecessarily so? And the narratives that were woven on mainstream media was, yes, we have to respond. Independent media and social media overwhelmingly was absolutely not. We do not have to respond. There's nothing about this situation that demands that we are inextricably locked into war. Okay. And so this is one moment, like all last night, all I could think of was how this would have played out if social media was not around. If we did not have access to social media with large platforms for everyone to shout at the top of their lungs, no war with Iran, all we would have had was mainstream media and all of them put on the best officials they had in order to justify, yes, the president must respond. And so far, people, it looks like social media, independent media, and I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to, put the horse before the cart. I'm terrified that it could be the case. It could be the case that it's could turn and go sideways really quickly, all dependent on what Donald Trump does this morning. And it's a shame. It's an absolute travesty that the president of the United States, one person, has this much power that basically his mood swing will determine whether or not we go to war, whether the world is plunged into war. Isn't that something? That's terrifying. Well, as it stands last night, Donald Trump looks like somebody either got a hold of his Twitter account or Donald Trump had a semi-magnanimous moment. And he said this. He said, all is well. Missiles launched from Iran at 2 military bases located in Iraq. Assessment of casualties and damages taking place now. So far, so good. We have the most powerful and well-equipped military anywhere in the world by far. I will be making a statement tomorrow morning. So this morning, we'll find out what the hell is going on. But as it stands, last night, I would much rather in any situation for someone to sleep on a decision like this. Granted, it is a decision that it is a problem of his own creation. It is a problem that was completely and utterly unnecessary. And so ultimately, he doesn't get any points for being semi-magnanimous in this moment. But I could set that whole criticism aside, all for the sake of us not going to war with Iran. Now, those are the competing narratives that happened last night. Something else happened last night that we'll go over in the next segment. But there was an airliner, a Ukrainian flight, a flight from Iran to Ukraine that crashed shortly after takeoff last night as well. And there's terrible footage of it going down. Fire. The plane was in the distance. You could see a ball of fire coming down out of the sky, and then a tremendous explosion at the end. Iran immediately said that it was a mechanical failure, but it looks like nothing like a mechanical failure. And unfortunately, it will be days if we ever find out what actually happened to it. I'll discuss. I'm honestly, I rarely do this, but I have a lot of speculations about it, and I'll discuss it in the next segment. But before I get to that, it was a terrible night that could have gotten even worse. And it could have gotten even worse very quickly if it was left up to mainstream media. And if not for millions of people across social media screaming no war with Iran across all the various platforms. Something else actually became apparent in this whole conflict. Thanks to social media, the people of the world can see that America is not monolithic. And this matters because it's important for the world to see that there are so many people in America who have solidarity with international solidarity beyond there's so many people in this country who look at this nationalism, this patriotic fervor, this patriotism that wraps their love for our country and how many bombs we could drop on Middle Eastern countries and nations. There are more people who oppose that than there are who support it. And that matters because once, you know what, I actually structurally, I don't know if it matters structurally. But it matters morally. It matters to me that the world knows that America is not just sitting back. You know what? It's important that the world not look at America the way America looks at the rest of the world. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. We look at North Koreans and say that they are the most propagandized, that they're all, we look at them as automatons who are brainwashed in support of their dear leader. When in fact, there's a resistance there in North Korea that is trying to shape their nation to be what their nation wants and desires to be outside of the influence of America. I digress. The point is that without social media, without the ability of the international community to actually look at our conversations, they would think that we were one monolithic evil empire where we all have this have been brainwashed with the red, white, and blue and crying as we sing the Star Spangled Banner. But no, you could look in America and say there are millions of people who want no war in any nation, anywhere across this globe. There are millions of people in this country who are fighting against our empire and against our military industrial complex. There are millions of people who understand the role that America has played on the international stage for at least the last 50 or 60 years. And there are millions of people who know that America absolutely must and will change. And we do not stand behind the actions of Donald Trump. But I personally am grateful that whoever got a hold of his Twitter account was able to save the world, at least for an evening. And now we have to wait until this morning, until we hear from him to see if that brief moment of armistice holds. I'll be back right after this.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Okay, come on. Well, it does feel a little odd to do a patron party in the midst of so much devastation, so many, I don't know, but you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking if there's ever a time that we need to enjoy ourselves, it's right now. Special thank you to all of our newest patrons and everyone who increased their pledge. You are the real MVPs. Special welcome to James. Wait a minute. I already did James Hardiman. You mean what? You mean to tell me we have no new patrons? I didn't cut the music. That's just kind of naturally where the music ends. We have no new patrons today. I want to see. I think we did have someone who increased their pledge. As my beautiful wife just brought me in a cup of coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know who we're going to have a party for? My wife. Everybody give it up for my wife. Yeah. Okay. So that's what that is. Someone increased their pledge. Oh, there it is. Dwayne Showell. Thank you. Thank you for increasing your pledge. Now I want to say how much he increased the pledge by, but I also want to say that this is a thank you. I am thanking him, and he's given me a wonderful idea. He increased his pledge by $1. And you know what? If everybody increased their pledge by $1, our show would be in a much better position. Let me go ahead and tell you something. What I did yesterday, I just kind of invested a little bit of money, not a whole lot of money. It was a $600 piece of equipment. I went ahead and invested in it to be able to do live streams, to do high quality live streams, because I wasn't going to do a live stream with just the standard webcam. As I sip on this wonderful coffee my wife just made me, So that piece is coming in today, and I'll have time to test it out today and tomorrow. And I will be partnering with USDS, United States Democratic Socialist, on Facebook and Instagram. I don't know how big their YouTube page is, if they have a YouTube page at all, but I'll be partnering with them and doing a live stream through their channels early in the morning. And so I mentioned that because if everyone increases their pledge by just $1, we won't cover the whole price of the device, but we'll absorb quite a bit of it. So that's it. I didn't really mean to spend this much time on Patreon, but I also just kind of wanted to tell you that what's coming. I went ahead and just bit the bullet anyway. We're going to do some live streams coming up soon. So why not go ahead and become a patron? Okay. Getting back to World War III. No, knock on wood. So a couple of other things happened last night, and I am a hypocrite. I'm going to tell you I'm a hypocrite because I personally am filled with so much rage at all of the people who are encouraging and pushing us to war. I am so enraged with those people because to them, this is a game. Human lives mean nothing. And I'm so infuriated with them that I would love to gather them all in one place and just see drones just fire down, just rain fire, so that they can experience the very thing that they are wishing on other people. And the reason they can do that, the reason they are able to just cavalierly wish war, they think American troops are invincible. And it's not until the body bags start coming back that they realize, oh shit. But then two is that there is a complete disconnect. We have successfully dehumanized every single person that is not from the West. Every person that is not American, every person that's not Canadian, every person that's not French or European, every person who's not white. We've completely dehumanized, because it's not even just the West. It's not just the West in terms of constructs. It's also a racial element. We dehumanize. We don't think twice about deaths in Africa, right? We don't think twice about the bombs and when I say death, I mean like murders in Africa. Boko Haram. We really don't think about the deaths the lives that are taken by them. We don't think about the drone attacks that we commit in the Middle East and the families that are, the weddings that are destroyed, the funerals. We've already killed some, and then they're going to the funeral and we kill more. And nobody even thinks or bats an eye here in the United States. Very few people, or more precisely, the people who are pushing us headlong into war, don't bat an eye because they don't see them as human. They do not see Iranians as human. They do not see Iraqis as human. Hell, they don't even see Mexicans as human. The only time we really care about the drug cartel carnage in Mexico is when it hits Americans. And it's been hitting Americans lately. Like I was watching, my mother was watching, she's in town helping us with the kids. She was watching NBC News, nightly news. And just it's a terrible experience, by the way. Never watch the evening news because there's just so many horrible things that are happening in the world. It's going to leave you depressed. But one of the things I saw last night was an American family slaughtered across the border in Mexico, right? But nobody's reporting on all of the people, all of the beheadings that take place in that town specifically, but in Mexico in general, because we don't care. We don't care unless they are European, unless they are white. We don't care. I think we just crossed the 5th anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo attacks. In America, we had so much solidarity with them. You would think it happened here in America. But does anyone even care about the last slaughter of Boko Haram? No, we don't. And so this is how these chicken shit cowards here in the United States who want to push us into war, Here is how they are able to do it, because one, they think American troops are invincible until those body bags start coming home. And then they're like, oh shit, this isn't G.I. Joe. All the heroes don't come home. And then the other way they do it is because they have absolutely zero regard for the lives of the people who are on the receiving end of our missiles. For example, last night, the airline that crashed near Tehran, it was a Ukrainian airline, killing 176. Everyone had to make the distinction. This is why it was a virtue signal of why you should care. You should care because there were 63 Canadians on board. Never mind, it was a flight originating out of Iran, which means the overwhelming majority of the people on the flight were Iranian. What matters is that there were 63 Canadians on board. Now you should care. If it was just, and you know what, I'm going to be quite transparent with you. Let's call a spade. We are all propagandized in this way. We are all propagandized in this way. You have a little less empathy because that's just how we're socially, that's how we're socially conditioned. It's like you have to work to remind yourself that there are more people on this international stage that matter than who the news tells you that matter, right? Because if we leave our judgment based on how the headlines are written, then this would tell you that the only people who mattered on that plane last night that died were the 63 Canadians. And people are using this as a means of egging on Canada and saying, oh, now Canada, now you have skin in the game. Now you should be angry at Iran.
But I was in London in the Blitz in 1940, living in the Millbank Tower where I was born. Some different ideas have come in since. And every night I went down to the shelter in Thames House. Every morning I saw Dockland burning. 500 people were killed in Westminster one night by a landmine. It was terrifying. Aren't Arabs terrified? Aren't Iraqis terrified? Don't Arab and Iraqi women weep when their children die? Doesn't bombing strengthen their determination? What fools we are to live in a generation for which war is a computer game for our children and just an interesting little Channel 4 news item.
Within 5 minutes, they were saying that it was a mechanical failure. So we can assume that that's not true. But if I were to speculate, which I rarely do on this show, but I just kind of got a feeling, and I don't mind being wrong about this, but I just kind of got a feeling that that this flight was mistaken. It was mistaken for a military plane, a U.S. military plane, and shot down. We saw something similar happen in Ukraine. I think it was MH17, Malaysia Airlines. It was mistaken and it was shot down, and very similarly, eerily similar, rather, is what I'm trying to say. Now, no, this is just a hunch. We may never find out. I could be completely wrong, but if that is what happened, I think if that is the case and that is what happened, I think that is all the more reason for every single actor in this conflict to chill the absolute hell out. And let's take a step back, because when you get into war, you have no idea how many people are going to die. You have no idea how it's going to end. Absolutely no war with Iran under any circumstances. Period. not a game, Kate. This is a scale model of war. Every war fought right there in front of you. Because it's always the same. When you fire that first shot, no matter how right you feel, you have no idea who's going to die. You don't know whose children are going to scream and burn, how many hearts will be broken, how many lives will be shattered, how much blood will spill until everybody does what they were always going to have to do from the very beginning. Sit down and talk. Thanks for indulging me. I was going to leave the show right there to end at that spot, but that would have been a little too melodramatic. I can't take myself that seriously. That was a line, one of the greatest speeches, anti-war speeches that I've ever heard of all time. It was part of a television show called Doctor Who. And as I was talking about the humanity of Iranians, it just came to me. And so anyway, that's it for today's show. I don't want to take myself too seriously. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.